Have you ever practiced something alone when nobody was watching? In a quiet room or in an empty corner, long after everyone else had gone home? Imagine a small park in East London. The grass is worn and tired. The evening light is fading. The other children have run home for dinner, but one boy stays. He places a ball on the grass. He steps back, then he kicks. He walks to fetch the ball. He places it again, and he kicks it again. He does this 10,000 times. That is the strange truth at the heart of this story. The boy was not the fastest. He was not the strongest. He could not dribble like Messi. He could not score like Ronaldo. He had only one true gift: a right foot. He practiced it longer than anyone else. That foot would one day curve a ball over Barcelona. It would save a country from disgrace. It would push him to the lowest point of his life. Then, slowly, it would lift him back into the light. Walk with me tonight, and you will meet a boy whose greatness came not from talent, but from practice. This is the story of David Beckham. David Robert Joseph Beckham was born on the 2nd of May, 1975. His home was a small place called Leytonstone, a quiet, working-class corner of East London. His family was not rich. His father, Ted, was a kitchen fitter. He built and installed kitchens in people's homes. His mother, Sandra, was a hairdresser. They lived simply, and they loved deeply. But there was one thing the Beckham family loved most: football. More than football, one team: Manchester United. Manchester is 200 miles from London, a 4-hour drive on busy English roads. Yet, several times a year, Ted would drive his family north just to watch United play. They loved the club the way some families love a religion. From the moment David was born, that love was passed down. His parents named him David Robert Joseph. The middle name was no accident. It was a quiet tribute to Bobby Charlton, the Manchester United legend who had won the World Cup. Ted Beckham worshipped Bobby Charlton, so he gave his son the great man's name, hoping some of that magic might find the boy. It would, just not yet. The boy first kicked a ball at Ridgeway Park, a small, ordinary patch of grass near his home. He joined a youth team when he was around 10. But there was something different about him. When the other boys finished training and went home for dinner, David stayed. He stayed when the light began to fade. He stayed when his fingers grew cold. He stayed when the park grew quiet. He placed the ball on the grass. He stepped back. Then he ran in, and he kicked. Then he picked up the ball and did it again. He did this hundreds of times, thousands of times, tens of thousands of times across the years. Can you imagine that kind of patience in a 10-year-old boy? Sometimes his father stood at the edge of the park, watching from a distance. Sometimes Ted would help, setting up cones, throwing the ball back, but often David practiced alone. Just a boy, a ball, and a right foot. He was patiently teaching. This is the secret hidden behind every great athlete. Talent is not born. Talent is built. Built in the cold evenings, built in the empty parks, built one repeated motion at a time, until the body learns what the mind cannot explain. When David was 11, he entered a football skills competition. It was organized by the Bobby Charlton Soccer School. The very name whispered into his crib. He won it. Bobby Charlton himself watched the young boy from Leytonstone. He saw something. He picked up the phone. He called his old club. He told them about the boy. The door David had been kicking at for years had just opened. At 13, David joined Manchester United's youth program. At 16, he signed his first contract. His parents drove him north to Manchester, the same long road, but now their son was on the other side of the journey. Their boy was wearing the red shirt they had loved all their lives. He had a place. He had a club. He had a dream that was no longer a dream. But he did not yet have a skill the world would remember. That was still being built. One quiet kick at a time. In the early 1990s, Manchester United had a fierce Scottish manager. His name was Alex Ferguson. Ferguson was demanding, brilliant, famous for one thing. He believed in young players when no one else did. In 1992, he had a remarkable group of youth players, a Welsh winger named Ryan Giggs, a brilliant midfielder named Paul Scholes, two brothers, Gary and Phil Neville, a tough midfielder named Nicky Butt. People called them the Class of '92. Among them was David Beckham. David's moment of national fame came on a warm summer afternoon, the 17th of August, 1996, the opening day of the Premier League season. Manchester United were away against Wimbledon. The match was almost over. United were already winning. Then, in the last minute, the ball came to Beckham. He was near the halfway line, more than 50 meters from goal. He looked up. He saw the goalkeeper standing too far in front of his net. He had a half-second to decide. He lifted his right foot. He chipped the ball into the sky. The ball rose. It traveled and traveled and traveled. The goalkeeper turned and ran backwards, watching helplessly. The ball came down, falling in a perfect arc. It dropped behind the goalkeeper into the back of the net. For a moment, the stadium was silent. Then it exploded. The next morning, every newspaper carried the same picture, the same name: David Beckham. A 21-year-old boy had just scored a legendary goal. Not with speed, not with strength, with one perfect strike of his right foot. The world had now seen what the foot could do. A year later, Manchester United gave him the number 7 shirt. In English football, this is not just a number. The number 7 has belonged to legends. George Best, Brian Robson, Eric Cantona. To wear it is to inherit a tradition. David was 22. He wore it like a man born for it. Then came the greatest season of his life. The 1998-99 season is still legendary. Manchester United did something no English club had ever done. They won 3 of the biggest trophies in the same year: the Premier League, the FA Cup, the Champions League. People called it the treble. The final piece came in Barcelona, a warm May evening in 1999. Manchester United played Bayern Munich in the Champions League final. The German team scored early. United chased the game, but they could not score. 90 minutes ended. United were losing 1-0. The trophy was slipping away. Then, in stoppage time, United won a corner. David Beckham walked to the corner flag. He placed the ball. He looked up. He bent his right foot. The ball curved through the night air into the penalty box. Teddy Sheringham flicked it into the net. 1-1. A minute later, United won another corner. Beckham walked to the flag again. He placed the ball again. He curved it in again. With the same right foot, the same impossible arc. A young Norwegian striker named Solskjaer stuck out his foot. The ball flew into the roof of the goal. 2-1. Manchester United had won the Champions League. The greatest night in the club's history. Built twice on one English boy's right foot. David Beckham was now famous. He was loved. He was at the top of European football. He did not know that 1 year later, his country would turn against him. What you are about to hear is one of the cruelest reversals in sport. A nation falling out of love with its own son. Stay close, my friend. This is where the story breaks open. In the summer of 1998, the World Cup was held in France. David Beckham was 23. His personal life had become as famous as his football. He was engaged to a young woman named Victoria Adams. The world knew her as Posh Spice, one of the 5 Spice Girls. Together, they were the most photographed couple in England. England reached the round of 16. Their opponent was Argentina. In English football, Argentina is not just another team. The two countries shared decades of pain. In 1986, the great Diego Maradona scored 2 famous goals against England. One with his hand, one of pure genius. He had knocked them out. England wanted revenge. The match was played in Saint-Étienne, the 30th of June, 1998. It was a beautiful, brutal game. Argentina scored first. England equalized through a penalty. Then an 18-year-old named Michael Owen scored a stunning solo goal. 2-1 to England. Then Argentina equalized just before halftime. 2-2. The teams went into the dressing room. The world held its breath. A few minutes into the second half, the moment came. David Beckham received the ball in midfield. An Argentine player named Diego Simeone slammed into him from behind. It was a hard, deliberate foul. Beckham fell face down on the grass. Simeone leaned over him. He pressed his fist into the back of Beckham's head, taunting him. It was a defender's trick to make a young player lose his temper. It worked. Beckham flicked his right leg up, just once, just lightly. His boot touched Simeone's leg. Simeone fell to the ground dramatically, holding his shin as if he had been shot. The referee walked over. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out a red card. David Beckham was sent off. The same right foot that had built his fame had now broken his life. England played the rest of the match with 10 men. They defended bravely, and they held on. The score stayed 2-2 through extra time. The game went to a penalty shootout. England missed 2 penalties. They were eliminated. In the car park outside the stadium, David Beckham stood with his father. He was sobbing. Ted Beckham held his son. He had just become a young man whose life had broken. What came next was unlike anything English football had done to its own. Beckham did not just become unpopular. He became hated. The next morning, English newspapers printed his face on their front pages. One newspaper printed a dartboard with his picture in the middle. Politicians went on television and named him as the reason England had lost. He was 23, and he was being blamed for the failure of a nation. It got worse. A pub in London hung an effigy of him outside the door, a stuffed dummy with a noose around its neck. Letters began to arrive at Manchester United's offices. Some of them contained bullets. There were death threats. Even at home, he later said, he no longer felt safe. There is something about this part of the story I cannot quite shake. He was 23, newly engaged, and he was the most hated man in his own country. He once said, "I wish there was a pill to erase certain memories." There is no such pill. There was only one way back. The same right foot that had ruined him would have to save him. David Beckham did not run away. He did not hide. He did not go quiet. He did not change clubs. He did not change countries. He went back to Manchester United. He did the only thing he knew. He played football. For 3 long years, he carried the weight of a country's anger. He was booed at almost every English stadium. Opposing fans waved fake red cards. They sang cruel songs about him and his wife. Can a country really hate one of its own this long? It can. Through all of it, Beckham simply ran and crossed and bent free kicks and helped Manchester United win. The treble came in the middle of these years. Slowly, painfully, his football spoke louder than the anger. In the year 2000, the England manager handed him the captain's armband, a quiet, important moment, a sign the country was beginning to listen again. But forgiveness had not yet come. Forgiveness would require something bigger, a single moment, on a single afternoon. That would erase years of pain. That afternoon came on the 6th of October, 2001. England were playing their final qualifying match for the World Cup. The opponent was Greece. The stadium was Old Trafford, David Beckham's home. England needed only a draw to qualify. Anything less, and they might miss the tournament. It should have been simple. Greece were not a strong team. But nothing was simple that afternoon. Greece scored first. England equalized. Then Greece scored again. 2-1 to Greece. The minutes began to disappear. 80, 85, 90. Old Trafford grew nervous. The English fans, once his enemies, now turned to him with hope. All afternoon, Beckham had refused to give up. He ran more than anyone. He chased every ball. He took every free kick. He took 6 free kicks across that match. Every one of them missed. The 7th chance came in stoppage time. A Greek player committed a foul 30 yards from goal. The referee blew his whistle. Beckham walked to the ball. 93 minutes on the clock. This was almost certainly England's last attack. The stadium fell silent. Beckham placed the ball carefully. He stepped back. He looked at the goal. He looked at the Greek wall. He looked at the goalkeeper. He took a deep breath. He ran in, and his right foot, The foot practiced 10,000 times in an empty park. The foot that had bent corners against Bayern Munich. The foot that had kicked Diego Simeone in a moment of madness. That right foot struck the ball. The ball rose. It curved. It bent through the air, around the wall, over the heads of the defenders. The Greek goalkeeper jumped, stretched, reached, but the ball was already past him, falling into the top corner. Old Trafford did not just cheer. It erupted, and it shook. The roof seemed to lift into the sky. David Beckham ran to the corner flag, arms outstretched, his face a picture of pure release. England were going to the World Cup. Years later, Beckham would say, "That was the moment England forgave me." Can you imagine carrying a nation's anger for 3 years and then setting it down with a single kick? 1 year later, a film was released. It was called Bend It Like Beckham. A British girl wants to play football against her family's wishes, dreaming of curving the ball just like Beckham did. The film was a worldwide hit. Just like that, his name had become a verb. To bend it like Beckham was now a part of the English language. The skill he had practiced alone in Ridgeway Park had become a word. But the redemption was not yet complete. The final chapter with Argentina was still to come. 8 months later, at the World Cup in Japan, England drew Argentina again. In the group stage, the same opponent, the same rivalry, the same pain, waiting to be answered. 23 minutes in, Michael Owen was fouled inside the penalty area. The referee pointed to the spot. David Beckham stepped forward. The whole stadium understood what this meant. Beckham placed the ball. He looked at the goalkeeper. He stepped back. He ran in. His right foot struck the ball. The ball flew straight into the middle of the net. England won. Argentina nothing. Beckham ran to the touchline, shouting at the sky. The years of anger and pain pouring out of him. The circle was complete. He had been broken. He had been hated. He had been forgiven. But the boy who had been broken in England, he was about to take his right foot to another country. By 2003, David Beckham had won everything in English football. 6 Premier League titles, 2 FA Cups, a Champions League. He was the captain of England. But things had begun to change at Manchester United. Alex Ferguson had grown frustrated with Beckham's fame. Beckham was no longer just a footballer. He was a global celebrity, a fashion icon, married to one of the most famous pop stars in the world. Ferguson did not like distractions. One day in February 2003, the two men argued in the dressing room. United had just lost an FA Cup match to Arsenal. Ferguson, furious, kicked a stray boot lying on the floor. The boot flew up and struck Beckham above the eyebrow. Blood ran down his face. The story leaked to the press. The relationship between the boy and his second father, now broken. A few months later, Beckham left the club he had loved since childhood. He signed for Real Madrid. Real Madrid was building something new. The club's president had decided to sign the greatest players on the planet, one by one. They were called the Galacticos. Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldo, Luis Figo, Roberto Carlos, Raúl. Now they wanted Beckham. When he arrived in Madrid, 500 journalists came to his unveiling. The number 7 shirt was already taken, so Beckham chose number 23, a tribute to Michael Jordan, the basketball legend who had worn it. In his final season, he helped Real Madrid win La Liga, the Spanish championship. Then, just at the top of European football, Beckham did something unexpected. He moved to America. In 2007, Beckham signed for the LA Galaxy. At the time, America did not care much about football. American football, baseball, basketball, these were the big sports. Soccer was something children played, but adults ignored. Beckham changed everything. His arrival was so big, the league created a new rule for him. Everyone called it the Beckham Rule. It allowed clubs to sign expensive international stars. Beckham was the first. Many others would follow. He won 2 MLS Cups with LA Galaxy. He helped attendance rise dramatically. He convinced sponsors to invest. He convinced television networks to broadcast games. He convinced America that soccer was worth caring about. After short spells in Italy and France, David Beckham retired. The year was 2013. He was 38 years old. But he was not finished with football. The biggest dream of his life was still ahead. When Beckham signed with the LA Galaxy, his lawyers had hidden a clever clause. When he retired, he could buy an MLS team at a special low price. He used it. He launched a new club in Florida. He called it Inter Miami. The club was new, the stadium was small, the early seasons were hard. But Beckham had a dream. He wanted to bring the greatest player in the world to America. He wanted Lionel Messi. For years he tried. He kept the conversation going. He waited. In 2023, the moment came. Messi's contract in Paris ended. Beckham made his offer, and Messi, the Argentine genius, the man who had just won the World Cup, he said, yes. Lionel Messi came to America. He came to Inter Miami. He came to David Beckham. It was our gift to America, Beckham later said. In December of 2025, Inter Miami won the MLS Cup. David Beckham stood on the field as the trophy was lifted. He became the first man in MLS history to win that championship. Twice. Once as a player, once as an owner. But the greatest day of his life was still to come. The day was the 4th of November, 2025. David Beckham arrived at Windsor Castle. He was 50 years old. With him were his parents, Ted and Sandra, now in their 70s. With them, Victoria. Ted and Sandra had driven that long road to Manchester so many times to watch their son chase his dream. Now they sat in a great hall in a royal castle, watching their boy kneel before the King of England. King Charles took a sword. He touched it lightly on Beckham's shoulder. He spoke the ancient words, "Arise, Sir David." The boy from Leytonstone was now a knight. Afterwards, Beckham said quietly, "It was my proudest moment." 7 months later, another honor came. The 12th of June, 2026. At 51 years old, David Beckham received his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. At the ceremony, he spoke about the man who had inspired him. Not a footballer, a basketball player, Michael Jordan. "He is the reason I chose number 23, Beckham said. "He showed me you could be more than just an athlete." More than 20 years after Madrid, that quiet tribute came full circle. Beside him stood Victoria, his parents, and his children. His old friend Tom Cruise spoke at the ceremony. Long before the trophies, long before the stadiums, there was a boy who believed in something bigger than himself. A boy who believed in something bigger than himself. The same boy who once stayed alone in Ridgeway Park. If you go back today to Ridgeway Park in East London, there is nothing special to see. Just grass. Just a few worn patches. Just an ordinary corner of an ordinary city. But stand there in the evening, just before the sun goes down. You can almost see it. A small boy, maybe 10 years old, alone. The light is fading. His friends have gone home. His mother is calling him for dinner. But the boy does not stop. He places a ball on the grass. He steps back. He runs in. He kicks. The ball flies. He walks to fetch it. He places it again. He kicks it again. 40 years later, that same right foot would save a country from disgrace. That same right foot would win the Champions League. That same right foot would push him to his lowest point, then lift him back into the light. The story of David Beckham is not really about football. It is about practice, about patience, about what one ordinary boy can do with one ordinary gift. If he is willing to stay in the park after the sun goes down. And, my friend, here is what I want you to carry tonight. You do not need to be the fastest. You do not need to be the strongest. You do not need to be born with everything. You only need one thing, and the patience to stay in the park alone. The small, quiet work nobody sees, the motion you repeat 10,000 times. David Beckham was broken. He was hated. He was forgiven. He was knighted. But before any of that, he was just a boy in Leytonstone, standing in a quiet park, picking up a ball, placing it again. Some legends are born with everything. David Beckham was born with one thing, and he made it everything.